Over at the federal building the other day, I went in to see about filing my income tax return. I do that every year, you know. Well, I went up to this feller and I said, I'd like to get some help with my income tax. And he says, all right, how much help will you need? And I said, about $45 ought to be enough. He motioned at me to sit down there, so I did, and he reached in his desk drawer and he took out this piece of paper with printing all over it, you know. Had this big number up there at the top, number 1040 it was. I didn't have no idea there'd been 1,039 people in there ahead of me. I had my questionnaire with me that I got in the mail, and he took it, and then he said, why, your form ain't nearly filled out yet. And I told him that me and the YMCA had both tried, but I was just naturally sunken-chested. Then he asked me if I had any exemptions, and I told him that I had took both the smallpox and typhoid shots. I didn't have no idea he'd be so interested in my health, you know, but he went right on there and he says, are you 65 or blind? And I told him, no. I says, I'm not 65 or blind, but if you can give me any credit for it, I'm ruptured real bad. He said that charity contributions was deductible. So I told him, I says, well, in that case, you can take off $480 that the welfare department give me this year. Then he says to me, he says, did you have any bad debts? And I said, oh, some of them was just terrible. You know, I don't think the income tax is fair at all. He struck off my biggest deduction. He said I couldn't claim internal revenue as a dependent. Well, next, you know, he wanted to know about capital gains or losses. And I told him, I says, every time I make a capital gain, I'll lose it to the tax collector. What's your job, he wanted to know. And I told him that I just did odd jobs. And he says, like what? And I says, like toting 100-pound sacks of sugar through the woods. Well, I guess that satisfied him. I told him that my job played out, though, because while the fellers I worked for was away, some vandals come and turned over all the barrels and busted the boiler. Just how much did you make last year, he says to me, and not counting what you got from welfare. Well, I told him it was right at $112. I could tell, you know, he wasn't too pleased with my income, so I spoke right up there and told him I wasn't exactly happy over it myself. I says, frankly, I don't know how me and the government both are going to manage on it. Well, then he did one of the nicest things that's ever been did for me. He took that piece of paper and said he was willing to forget the whole thing if I'd just leave. And he tore it up. He told me I wouldn't get into no trouble for not filing. I sure hope he don't get into no trouble for being so good to me. Say, if you ain't filed yet, why don't you go see this feller? He's got the second desk on the left.